The bar slipped from my hands for half a second, and in that tiny moment, everything I thought I knew about courage changed. I had spent months quietly admiring Rachel from across our neighborhood gym in Austin, Texas, never finding the confidence to say more than a nervous hello. Then one rainy Thursday evening, she walked over, smiled, and asked me to spot her. I expected nothing more than a few seconds of awkward conversation. I had no idea that one simple request would lead to a lesson about confidence, kindness, and seeing the person behind the smile. Before we continue, if you believe that kindness, hope, compassion, forgiveness, and second chances can change someone's life, take a moment to like this story, share it with someone who needs encouragement, and subscribe to the channel. Sometimes a small act of kindness becomes the beginning of something much bigger. My name is Caleb, and at 22, I was the kind of person who preferred staying unnoticed. I worked mornings at a small hardware store and spent my evenings helping my grandfather, George, who had been struggling to keep up with his old house since my grandmother passed away. The gym was the one place where I could clear my mind. I wasn't particularly athletic, and I certainly wasn't confident, but I kept showing up because routine made difficult days easier. Rachel was different. She seemed completely comfortable wherever she went. She trained with determination, encouraged people who were struggling, and always seemed to notice when someone looked discouraged. I admired that about her more than anything else. What I didn't know was that her confidence was partly an act. One evening, after a difficult day at work, I was finishing a set when Rachel approached me. She asked if I could spot her because her usual training partner had canceled. I agreed, trying not to look as nervous as I felt. She walked toward the equipment, glanced back, and jokingly told me I could come a little closer so I could help if needed. I smiled awkwardly and told her I was right there. The moment was completely ordinary, yet I couldn't stop thinking about it afterward. Not because of the joke, but because Rachel had trusted me enough to ask for help. For someone like me, who spent most of his life believing he was invisible, that small gesture mattered. Over the next few weeks, we started talking more. I learned that Rachel had recently left a college program after realizing she had chosen it only because her parents expected it. She was working part-time at a community center while trying to figure out what she actually wanted from life. Behind her confident smile was someone terrified of disappointing everyone. Then my own life became difficult. My grandfather fell behind on several household repairs, and I began taking extra shifts at the hardware store. I stopped going to the gym regularly. I felt guilty whenever I spent time doing anything for myself. One Saturday morning, Rachel unexpectedly appeared at the hardware store. She noticed the exhaustion on my face immediately. Instead of asking a dozen questions, she simply helped me organize a pile of boxes that had been left near the entrance. When I thanked her, she told me that I didn't always have to carry everything alone. Those words stayed with me. A few days later, I finally admitted that I had been avoiding people because I was afraid they would discover I wasn't as confident as I pretended to be. Rachel laughed softly and admitted that she felt exactly the same way. That conversation changed our friendship. We stopped trying to impress each other. Rachel began volunteering more hours at the community center, where she helped teenagers with homework and organized weekend activities. I started helping my grandfather repair his house instead of constantly worrying about everything that could go wrong. Slowly, both of us became better versions of ourselves. The biggest surprise came when Rachel received an opportunity to become a full-time coordinator at the community center. She was terrified of accepting it. She thought she wasn't qualified enough. I reminded her of all the times I'd watched her encourage people who wanted to quit. I told her that confidence wasn't about believing you were perfect. It was about being willing to try even when you were afraid. She accepted the position. Months later, I stood outside the community center while Rachel prepared for her first major event. Children were arriving with their families, volunteers were setting up tables, and the entire building was filled with laughter. Rachel looked across the room and smiled at me. I realized then that the moment she asked me to spot her at the gym had never really been about lifting weights. It had been about trust. She had trusted me to stand nearby when she needed help. Later, she taught me that accepting help wasn't weakness. I had spent years believing that strength meant handling everything alone, but Rachel showed me something better. Sometimes strength means allowing someone to stand beside you. That evening, after the event ended, we sat outside beneath the warm Texas sky and talked about how different our lives looked from a few months earlier. There was no dramatic promise and no perfect ending. There was simply gratitude, friendship, and the quiet understanding that two people could encourage each other without trying to change who the other person was. If this story touched your heart, please support it by liking the video, sharing it with someone who may need a little hope, and subscribing. Your simple interaction can help these stories reach someone who needs to hear that asking for help doesn't make you weak. And before the story ends, leave a comment telling us this. What is one small act of kindness someone showed you that you still remember today? Because sometimes life doesn't change through huge miracles. Sometimes it changes through an ordinary Thursday, a simple request for help, and one person choosing to stand nearby when another person needs support. And sometimes, the person you thought you were simply helping turns out to be the person who teaches you how to believe in yourself again.